Good morning, this is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for September 9th around 7 a.m. Major Hurricane Irma is churning on the north coast of Cuba at this hour, and it is expected to start turning north this afternoon and heading towards Florida. Here is our visible satellite of the entire Atlantic Basin. We have three systems on the map. Last night, Hurricane Katia made landfall just near Tuxpan, Mexico, just south of Tuxpan, right in this area here as a Category 1 hurricane, and is now washing out over the mountains inland. Came inland north of Veracruz and south of Tampico, but the Tuxpan area is somewhat populated. But luckily this did not intensify before landfall, and we're not going to talk about this system anymore. We also have Jose out here near the Leeward Islands. It's going to pass just northeast of the Leewards and then go up in this area here and meander around for a little while. And of course, all eyes here are on Hurricane Irma. And again, we put it in motion. You can see Irma is churning on the north coast of. Looking at this morning's close-up floater loop on Hurricane Irma, you can see the deep red convection has kind of waned here this morning because of the land interaction, and it is passing over a relatively flat portion of Cuba, but the water source has been somewhat cut off at this point. So that in combination with the mountainous terrain of southern central Cuba, some of those mountains are 3,000–4,000 feet up, and the winds coming in from the south are kind of maybe being choked off a little bit on the southwest quadrant of this. You can see there's not a lot of deep convection on the west side, so that is kind of preventing this right now from intensifying until it pulls away from Cuba, which will start happening later this afternoon. Using our version of the HurTrack program, courtesy of PC Weather Products, you can see that Hurricane Irma is approaching from the southeast, south of the Florida Keys right now. And as the morning progresses, it'll begin to approach the Florida Keys, the tropical storm force wind field inside the yellow circle. And then you see the sustained tropical storm force winds up to hurricane force approach tomorrow night, or tonight rather, tonight around 10 p.m. And then starting in the wee hours of the morning on Sunday, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., the hurricane force winds arrive in the lower Florida Keys. And then 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, that is when the core of this very powerful hurricane with 150-mile-per-hour winds is forecast to pass directly over Key West, and this is going to be absolutely devastating. I hope everybody got out of that area because it's going to completely go underwater. And then as the morning progresses, it'll begin to pull away. Early afternoon, it begins to approach Naples, and then heads up into Fort Myers toward the evening hours. And at this time, the winds would still be around 150 miles an hour, and that is subject to change depending on the intensity of the warm waters that it has to pass over moving towards South Florida. And then you notice at this position now, the East Coast, let me rewind this a little bit. You know, you got Miami around 90 miles to the east of the center of circulation, this the eye of the hurricane, and you have the Broward County area around 100 miles to the east of the center of Hurricane Irma, and then you get up into Palm Beach County, it's about 105, 110 miles. But these areas are still going to get gust up to hurricane force, as this is a very large system moving north on the west coast. The hurricane force wind field inside that yellow circle will expand to include all of these east coast cities. But again, there we are in the evening on Sunday night. It's moving into Fort Myers, and the worst of it begins to pull out around 10, 11 o'clock at night up near Port Charlotte. Then it hits near Sarasota. Still around 130-mile-per-hour winds on early Monday morning. It's up near Tampa. And then the winds will be coming in off the Gulf of Mexico, pushing into Tampa Bay. That could be another aspect of this. You know, this is going to end up being probably a mega disaster, no doubt about it. And the winds will be coming in from the northwest and pushing all that water from the west into Tampa Bay. It's going to be I hope they got everybody out of those areas as well. And this is as of 3 a.m. It'll all be happening in the dark in the Tampa area, unfortunately. And between Port Charlotte and Tampa, we'll be completely in the dark dealing with this hurricane. and then it'll pass just north of Tampa, right on the west coast of Florida toward the Big Bend area, going into Monday in the early morning hours. So at least in North Florida, you'll be dealing with this in the daylight hours as this winds down towards a Category 1 hurricane. At that time, the winds will be 91 miles an hour. What's neat about this program is you can click on certain areas and get the actual wind profile of what is expected to happen. For example, down here in Key West, let's take a look. And we can see that the winds are expected to be 143 gusting to 173, and that's at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then when we get up into the Naples area, we have 150 gusting to 181, and that's going into 4:30 in the afternoon on Sunday. And then on Sunday evening, it approaches the Fort Myers area, and we have winds here 150 gusting to 181. Port Charlotte, 172, 142 gusting to 172. And this is when it gets dark. Now between Port Charlotte and Tampa, and then up here in Tampa, we're going to have 121 miles an hour gusting to 146. So this is going to be very, very destructive on the west coast of Florida. And luckily for you people in southwest Florida, even though you're going to get the worst conditions, you're going to get it in daylight hours for the most part, except, just right near Fort Myers, it's going to be turning dark. And then from there to Tampa and up towards the Big Bend, it's going to be in the middle of the night. And then as it gets into North Florida, it is going to be getting light out, so you'll be able to at least see what's going on. Now over here on the East Coast, for example, my area in Delray Beach here, we are going to have 65 gusting to 79, and that would be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. Up in the West Palm area, we've got winds 62 gusting to 75, and in the Miami area, we've got winds 68 gusting to 83, and that'll be around noontime on Sunday. So that's the thinking. Okay, one more thing I want to look at, the lake. That's important. Around Lake Okeechobee, 74 gusting to 90 miles an hour, and that would be at 7 p.m. on Sunday. And we add the county lines in here, and you can see my point that the majority of these really high winds are going to be in the western areas of Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County, and then over toward the west coast. That's where the most destruction is going to take place, is on the west coast of Florida, all the way up the coast, all the way through the Big Bend area. That's going to be very heavy damage from wind and storm surge flooding. Now we also have the threat of rain, and here we are looking at the state of Florida and throughout the southeast. Anywhere between 5 inches and 20 inches of rain in some of these locations from Hurricane Irma. Naturally, southwest Florida get the most rain because they're going to get the core of this moving through there. But rain is going to be the least of your problems. Believe me when I say this. This is not a Harvey situation where it's going to linger. This is moving through. This is going to be a surge and wind problem. And then looking at the north portion of Florida, we have, again, hurricane force winds slicing right through the center of the state. The dark blue areas would indicate gust or hurricane force. So let's take a look at, for example, the Ocala area. And we're going to expect to have winds of 74 gusting to 90. So it's going to be a high wind event, even up into the central areas of North Florida. Even over here near Disney World in Orlando, we're talking 72 miles an hour gusting to 87. So this is going to be a high wind event for a lot of people. And again, the lighter shaded blue area out in here, for example, Cape Canaveral up near the Daytona area would be 65 gusting to 78. So you're still going to get gust to hurricane force in these areas all up and down the east coast of Florida. But again, the further west you go in Florida, the worse it's going to be. So try to avoid the western areas if you can. And that's where we stand. And using the Earth Systems Laboratory website, we can run the ensemble models. And here we are with the GEFS ensemble members. You can see the majority of them are right on the west coast of Florida. There's a little small group that's up close to the Lake Okeechobee area, and then you have a few that are out there near the West Palm East Beach East Coast scenario. But those we can disregard because our system is currently right here, and so these already had it out in here somewhere. So these are not possible at this point. These are still possible going up the center of the state and the west coast. All these other ones from here on over are the most likely at this point based on these models. And, I kept harping for days on the video updates and on the live shows nightly at hurricanecity.tv and on Facebook that the UK Met model handles powerful hurricanes pretty well, and to not disregard that potential track going into Cuba. Well, here we are with the UK Met nailing that track going into Cuba. And of course, the Euro showed it on a few runs too, but the most consistent with that path into Cuba was the UK Met model. And its model solution suite is basically very tightly clustered right here in this pattern right here. So it's looking less and less likely that we're going to see something going up the center of the state, and virtually no chance for the East Coast. This is going to be a West Coast storm. Here are the Canadian ensemble models, and they have not been handling this storm well at all. They've been kind of all over the map, East Coast, West Coast, flip-flopping back and forth, but the Canadian error rate is pretty high, almost 100 miles more than some of the other global models. So it doesn't have a good handle on this, but there are a few stragglers out here in the Gulf of Mexico, and in the NavGem, I'm going to show you that in a minute, that they have some going out here in the Gulf too. So it's not completely out of the question that this could completely miss the west. Well, not completely. They're going to get heavy impacts from this, but what I mean is the core could stay out over the water. That is a small, slight possibility of that happening, but this model, again, not performing very well. And looking at the NavGem model runs, again, a lot of them are out over the open water, but this model, the Navy NOGAPS, former NOGAPS NavGem model, FENMOC, whatever you want to call it, these ensemble runs have been all over the map. Left bias for the most part on this entire track. The NavGem model has been very erratic with the storm, and again, most of those ensembles now are taking it out over the open waters. We'll keep an eye on this because it is a possibility, but this FENMOC model has not been performing very well either. And finally, here is our European model run. This is the best performing model by far of all of the global and even most of the ensemble models, of all of the models. Only off by about 95 miles at 5 days. This model has done an outstanding job on Hurricane Irma, and it shows it going right through the lower Florida Keys, right near Key West, and up there just west of the Fort Myers, Port Charlotte area, and then right into Tampa, and up in the West Coast, the Big Bend, Florida area. So that is the best performing model, and that track probably will verify or come very close to that. And taking one more look at the close-up floater loop of Hurricane Irma, you can see that the eye is trying to make a comeback there over that little water pocket in between the islands of North Cuba, and it won't really get its act together until it pulls completely away from the north coast of Cuba. All right, so here are the plans for hurricanecity.com coming up in the next 24 to 36 hours. Daily, all throughout the day today, you can watch hurricanecity.tv. That's on our Ustream channel. Click the Ustream logo at the top of Hurricane City, or just click on the little television set in the upper right-hand corner of hurricanecity.com, and we have live media from the areas that could be impacted by Hurricane Irma. Nightly, we've been doing shows since, I'd say probably the last 4 or 5 days. Nightly at 9:30 p.m. on hurricanecity.tv and on our Facebook page. The Facebook logo can be found on the front page of hurricanecity.com. And we are live nightly on Ustream and Facebook between 9:30 and 11 p.m. as we await the 11 p.m. advisory each night discussing Hurricane Irma. Tonight, however, may be a different story because I have some plans to potentially head over there to cover Hurricane Irma in the Fort Myers area. I have a gentleman that's been very courteous in offering refuge in a sturdy building that is elevated with generator and the whole 9 yards. He's in emergency management, and we could get over there and cover this as it's happening. I may either leave tonight or early tomorrow morning and head across the state, depending on the speed and the trajectory and the whole 9 yards. But if I'm not live, well, even if I am on the road tonight or whatever, we may still do the show live tonight. I may not be here in the studio, but we will do the show tonight live. And then, of course, as it hits on Sunday afternoon, I will be covering this thoroughly with my co-host Bill Phillips, and we will be covering this hour by hour as this unfolds, this mega disaster that's about to take place. So that's our coverage plans. You can always visit Hurricane City for the latest information, zoomed in maps and radars and all kinds of cameras and stuff that you need to see. That's it for now. Please, everybody, I cannot emphasize this enough. This is a very, very serious situation. If you live on the West Coast, make sure you're in a fortified home that has shutters on it. You're ready to ride out the storm. If you're not, you feel unsafe. If you're in a manufactured home or any kind of structure you feel is not covered and safe on the West Coast, get out. Now's your last chance. Anyway, that's it. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate the help and the support. We've gotten a lot of emails and people commenting on what we've been doing the past several days. Please help us by donating. There's donation buttons on the all over the website and different various pages. Every penny helps run hurricanecity.com. We've been doing it for 20 years on the internet, and we appreciate all the support. Anyway, that's it. I'm Jim Williams. Thank you for watching.